Hi guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel, and today we'll be talking about credit cards. This is a complete beginner's guide to UK credit cards, but everything we'll discuss here will apply to other parts of the world as well. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which credit cards to start with, my top 5 plus some honorable mentions. We'll talk about how to avoid unnecessary declines. We'll talk about how many credit cards should you actually have and why. So stay tuned and hopefully you'll like it. So let's get to it. To start with, let's have a look at the different types of credit cards out there and see which one is right for us to start with. You will find 4 main credit card types out there. It is reward credit cards, purchase, balance transfer, and credit builders. For us, we're interested in credit builder credit cards because they're the easiest to get into. Since we're focusing on credit cards for bad credit, we will ignore all high street banks straight away. So Barclays, HSBC, Santander, Metro Bank, anything high street, we will not even bother. They will have a harsh process to get into. They don't usually provide credit cards for bad credit, and hence you would need at least a 700 score on Experian to get in. Now the question is, how many credit cards should you have? On average in the UK, you will hear a number of 1 to 2 credit cards, and people are a little bit reluctant to have many credit cards. In my case, I advise to have at least 5 credit cards, and I'll explain why in a minute. I personally have 7, and I'm growing to 10 in the near future for sure. Why, you may ask? And the reason is that 65% of your credit score is made up from credit utilization and payment history, both parameters which can be easily influenced and managed by your credit cards. And the more you have of them, the more control you have over your credit score. If you want to find out more about your credit score and what it's made up of, you can check out my video about credit scores here. Now back to payment history and credit utilization. The credit utilization is simply a ratio of how much credit you are using over how much credit you have in total. And payment history is a ratio of how many payments you make on time versus how many payments you have to make on time. Now let's have a look at the example. If you have 2 credit cards, you make 2 on-time payments per month, which is 24 payments per year. And if we look at your payment history, which is the ratio of on-time payments over your payments that you have to make, we have 24 over 24, which gives you 100%. However, if you miss 2 payments in a year, you will have 22 over 24, which gives you 91%. And that's really bad for your credit score. You want to have payment history of at least 95% plus, and ideally you want it to be at 100 at all times. Now let's have a look at if you had 5 credit cards. You make 5 payments on time per month, which is 60 per year. Again, we'll look at 60 over 60, that gives us 100%. And if we miss 2 payments, that's 58 over 60, which gives us 97% on-time payments. So just by having 3 extra credit cards, we protect our payment history from having a devastating impact on our credit score and protect our payment history. The next thing that you will improve with having multiple credit cards is your credit limit and credit borrowing power. Let's look at the example. If you have 1 credit card with a credit limit of £200, it grows by £100 every quarter, i.e. by the end of the year, if you make your payments on time, your credit limit will increase by £400, i.e. your credit limit now is £600. If you have 5 credit cards, each with £200 credit limit, you already started with £1,000 credit limit, which is better than what you will have a year down the line if you had just the 1. If we look at the year down the line with 5 credit cards, each credit card will increase your credit limit roughly by £100 every quarter. So we're looking at £400 per year per card, and boom, at the 1 year mark, you are with a credit limit of £3,000, which is more than 4 times, it's 5 times greater than the credit limit you would have had with 1 credit card. Fairly, you may ask, will applying for many credit cards in a short period of time affect my credit score? The answer is yes! Any application for any credit temporarily reduces your credit score by a few points. It will bounce back within a week or two by itself, and also if you're making payments on time and your credit utilization is good, it will bounce back even higher. In my case, my credit score dropped by 30 points. Bear in mind, I applied for about 15 and was declined on 7 of those, 7 or 8. So I was approved for only 7. That decreased my Experian credit score by 30 points. What happened next, a month down the line, my Experian credit score went up by 111 points. So it's an 81 point profit by just applying for credit cards. Completely free, not doing pretty much anything, just one evening of your time, you improve your credit score by 80 points. Now let's talk about how to choose a credit card for bad credit. To start with, you shouldn't worry about the APR on those types of credit cards. We will never use the credit card for long-term borrowing or for borrowing as such at all. We only will use the credit card and close off the balance every month without paying any fees. So APR, it may be 1000%, it doesn't matter, because we will never roll over the balance to the next month. We always will close it on time. With that in mind, the APRs you will see usually around the 40% mark. The higher the APR, the slightly easier it is for you to get, but there are two very important factors that you need to consider, and that's your minimum credit limit and the underlying lender, and only third comes the APR. The minimum credit limit is very important and very rarely advertised. The bottom line is, the lower the minimum credit limit a lender willing to give, the more likely you will be accepted, because the lower the threshold. The second thing you want to worry about is the underlying lender. You will notice that there are a lot of credit cards out there. Let's take, for example, AQUA, Marbles, and Fluid. 3 completely different companies on the surface, but what unites them is that they all lend from New Day Limited. And what that means, when you apply for a credit card with any of those 3 companies, they just pass your information over to New Day, they will do the credit check, and then they feed the information back to one of those 3 who you applied with. The problem with that is, if you've been declined by one of those credit cards, which all have different conditions, by the way, most likely you will be declined for all other loans and credit cards that are backed by New Day Limited. Now the event we've been waiting for. What credit cards should you start with? So I've put together a list of top 5 credit cards with underlying lenders, which ones you should apply for, and in which order as well. And the number 1 on our top 5 is VANQUIS credit card. The reason they are number 1 is because they have the lowest credit limit out of all 14 credit cards for bad credit. They have the credit limit of just £100 to start with, which means the bar is set very low for us to get approved for. Bear in mind that VANQUIS also backs few other credit cards: Thimble, Chrome, and Origin. Thimble and Origin both have the minimum credit limit of 150, which is higher, and Chrome has a minimum credit limit of 250. So I wouldn't recommend applying for them to start with at all. Bear in mind that VANQUIS uses just Experian credit reports to calculate your credit score. And number 2 on our list is Ocean credit card. Ocean is backed by Capital One with a minimum credit limit of £200. In fact, all credit cards that are backed by Capital One have a minimum credit limit of £200. These cards include Post Office, Think Money, and Capital One credit card. The reason we're going after Ocean is because it is specifically designed for bad credit, and therefore will be easiest to be approved on. A good thing about Capital One is that it uses all 3 credit reporting agencies to calculate your credit score. So it will take a credit report from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, combine it together, and then calculate a score. The next up is number 3, which is TESCO credit card. It is backed by TESCO Bank and has a minimum credit limit of £200. TESCO Bank also uses all 3 credit reports, much like Capital One, to calculate your credit score. So it gives you a very good chance of being approved. TESCO credit card is also a credit card for bad credit. So much like Ocean, they are kind of sharing the 2nd, 3rd place. Doesn't matter which one you go first. So you have pretty much equal chances of being approved for each of those. Next up is number 4, which is ZOPA. ZOPA credit card has a minimum credit limit of £200 and is backed by independent financial institution, and they use Equifax and TransUnion credit reports together to calculate your credit score. Now, the last but not the least is number 5, which is our AQUA credit card for bad credit. It is specifically designed for bad credit situations to improve your credit score and has a minimum credit limit of £250. Something to note is that AQUA is sponsored by New Day Limited, and New Day Limited has a lot of credit cards it backs, so just something to be aware as well. In the bad credit spectrum, you will also be recommended a card called Fluid and Marbles as a credit card for bad credit. I wouldn't go for any of those, the reason being that Marbles, even though the minimum credit limit is also 250, it's not quite for the bad credit and it's harder to get. And if we go for Fluid, the minimum credit limit there is £300, which is very high and very unlikely that we will get approved on that. Something to note is that New Day Limited uses Experian only to calculate your credit score. So out of all companies out there, again, your chances are slightly worsened by the fact that they're using only one credit reporting agency. But given that Experian is probably the biggest credit reporting agency, maybe it's not that bad after all. Now, this is our top 5 credit cards you want to start with in the exact order I would apply for them. Now, back in the day when I started, I've literally applied to every single credit card I could find, didn't care about their credit limits, their underlying lenders, none of that information was available to me at the time. I just applied to everything and had a lot of declines, as you can imagine. So hopefully you'll be wiser and will go down the route of the 1st to the 5th, hopefully apply for all 5 of them and skyrocket your credit score within the first couple of months. Now, as I mentioned, I have some honorable mentions, but before that, I have a secret weapon, a card you will most likely be approved for no matter how bad your credit score is. They're giving those out pretty much to anyone. The problem is with this card, they're extremely dangerous if you don't know how to manage money well. And if you don't, you will end up with a huge debt very quickly and it will destroy your credit score like it did me a couple of years ago. And I'm talking about AMEX Charge Cards. And Charge Card is very different from a credit card. And the difference is twofold. First of all, on a Charge Card, there are no preset credit limits. So in theory, it's limitless. In practicality, once you get the charge card, you probably have like a £200 limit on the first transaction. Once you close that off, you can spend 1,000. Once you close that off, you can do 2,000, and very quickly you get to the position where you can spend 15,000–20,000 pounds in one transaction. And that's one of the big problems with it. Now, the second problem is that with charge cards, you have to close the balance by the end of the month, by your due date. And if you don't, it will count as a missed payment and it will ruin your credit score very quickly. Now back to honorable mentions. There are 2 cards I want you to consider once you've applied and exhausted all other options, and that is AMEX credit cards. In particular, AMEX Avios credit card and AMEX Platinum Cashback. Both of those cards have 2 types, paid with annual fee and free. Of course, you want the free versions of each of those cards. You don't want to pay any annual fee. The reason I'm saying try to apply for them after you've exhausted all other options is because American Express is an established business and they are usually not as easy to get into. So overall, here's your 8 options for credit cards, well, plus a charge card, and hopefully you can use those to improve your credit score quite quickly. I know I did, and I know that you can as well. Just be careful with credit cards. Remember the golden rule, never spend more than you earn, and always close the balance on time by due date, never roll over the balance, and never pay any fees on your credit cards. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully you found it interesting and you liked it. If you did like it and you found the information useful, hit that like button, just destroy it. It helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. It really warms my soul, should we say. So thank you very much if you click that like button. Please subscribe for more content like this, and if there's anything in particular that you want me to cover, I'm more than happy to read about it in the comments, and we'll make a video about it as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
We triple up, they on the double up, triple dub. Came from the basement, we only going up. They loving us. Up in the booth, I'm getting dizzy, but they the cup is up. Toast to my people that's on the come up, and you live with us.